He insulted her because he thought she could not understand him. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was believing Elena Rhodes was the kind of woman who would lower her eyes, apologize for existing, and disappear into the kitchen with shame burning behind her smile. The room was full of wealthy men that night, politicians with clean hands in public and dirty money behind closed doors, real estate kings with wives at home and mistresses laughing into champagne glasses, old Southern families pretending their money was too elegant to be criminal. And, at the center of it all, seated beneath a chandelier made of Venetian glass, was Alessio Marcone, the most feared mafia boss in New Orleans. He had not raised his voice once. He had not threatened anyone. He had only entered the restaurant with 4 men behind him. And every conversation inside La Lune Bleu had died like a candle in rain. Elena knew fear when she saw it. She saw it in the manager's pale face. She saw it in the bartender's shaking hands. She saw it in the way rich men suddenly looked down at their plates, as if eye contact with Alessio Marcone might cost them more than money. Elena had spent years serving people who thought wealth made them untouchable. But this man was different. Wealth followed him. Power obeyed him. Fear walked 2 steps behind him, like a loyal dog. He wore a black tailored suit, simple and devastating, with the top button of his shirt left open, just enough to reveal the dark edge of tattoos climbing toward his throat. His hair was black, his jaw sharp, his expression carved from ice. He looked too calm to be safe. And Elena hated that some reckless, hidden part of her noticed how beautiful danger could be when it wore a human face. She approached his private table with a silver tray balanced in one hand and a bottle of expensive Bordeaux in the other. Her manager had already warned her 3 times. Do not spill. Do not linger. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make him angry. As if men like Alessio needed permission to destroy someone. Elena stepped into the private section and felt the air change. Good evening, gentlemen, she said, her voice smooth from years of surviving rooms that did not want her. Would you like to begin with wine? Alessio did not look at her at first. His right-hand man, Matteo, did. Matteo's gaze moved over Elena's body slowly, without shame, pausing at the curve of her hips beneath the black waitress uniform. The dress had never been designed for a woman like her. It pulled at the wrong places, hugged the rest too tightly, and gave customers one more excuse to look before pretending they had not. Elena had learned to let them look, let them underestimate, let them believe softness meant weakness. Yes, Matteo said, leaning back with a faint smirk. Poor. Elena kept her expression neutral. The space between the chairs was narrow, too narrow. The kind of narrow designed by people who assumed every woman hired to serve wine would be thin enough to vanish between expensive furniture. As she leaned forward, Matteo shifted his chair. Not much, just enough. The leather edge bumped Elena's hip. The bottle tilted. A single drop of red wine slipped from the mouth of the bottle and landed on the white tablecloth. The stain bloomed like a small wound. The entire table went silent. Elena straightened immediately. My apologies, she said. I'll replace the cloth. Matteo clicked his tongue. Then Alessio Marcone finally looked at her. His eyes were almost black. Not empty. Worse. Controlled. He studied her face. Then her body. Then the wine stain. And something cold moved across his expression. He leaned slightly toward Matteo and spoke in Arabic. The language came from him smoothly, with the polished confidence of a man who had used it before and trusted it like a locked door. Look at her, Alessio said in Arabic, his voice low enough that only his table should have heard. Too heavy to move through a room. Too clumsy to serve wine. Tell the manager to send someone who does not take up the whole aisle. Matteo's mouth curved. One of the other men let out a quiet laugh. They expected Elena to stand there with polite confusion on her face. They expected her to hear the shape of a foreign language and feel safely excluded from her own humiliation. They expected the insult to pass over her head like smoke. But Elena understood every word. For 1 second, she could not move. Her fingers tightened around the neck of the bottle until the glass felt slick beneath her hand. Heat rose through her chest. Not embarrassment, not even surprise. Rage. Old rage. The kind built from years of being called too much in rooms that demanded women become smaller. Too curvy. Too visible. Too emotional. Too proud. Too difficult. Too much. She thought of every customer who had snapped his fingers at her. Every woman who had looked her up and down before asking if the restaurant had a smaller uniform. Every manager who had told her to smile more while powerful men treated her like furniture. She had swallowed so much disrespect that night after night. It had almost become a second language. But Arabic was not one of the languages she swallowed. Arabic was her childhood. Her mother's hospital corridors in Beirut. Cairo markets bright with noise and sun. Late-night tea with neighbors who loved loudly, argued passionately, and taught Elena that words could be knives or prayers, depending on who held them. Elena slowly set the wine bottle on the table. The soft sound of glass touching wood seemed louder than the jazz band near the bar. Then she turned fully toward Alessio Marconi and answered him in Arabic. A man who insults a woman's body in a language he thinks she cannot understand is not powerful, Elena said, each word calm and perfect. He is a coward wearing expensive clothes. The silence that followed was absolute. Matteo's smirk disappeared. The bodyguard behind Alessio shifted his hand inside his jacket. Every server watching from across the room stopped breathing. Alessio did not move. For the first time since he entered La Lune Bleu, something broke through his cold expression. Not anger. Shock. Elena switched back to English. I'll send another server. Then she picked up her tray, turned her back on the most dangerous man in New Orleans, and walked away. She made it all the way to the kitchen before her hands started shaking. The swinging door closed behind her, cutting off the golden dining room, the music, the chandelier, the powerful men pretending they had not just witnessed a waitress shame a crime lord in his own secret tongue. Elena, her manager whispered. Calvin Bell looked like he might collapse. What did you say to him? Elena placed the tray on the counter with careful precision. The truth. Calvin stared at her. You called Alessio Marconi a coward. He called me worse. You do not understand what you just did. Elena looked at him then. A bitter laugh almost escaped her. She understood perfectly. Men like Alessio Marconi did not need to touch you to ruin your life. They had employees for that. Lawyers, police, friends in City Hall, men waiting outside apartment buildings, quiet threats, missing paychecks, eviction notices, accidents that never made sense. Elena had been brave in the dining room because anger was faster than fear. But fear caught up quickly. It followed her home that night. It sat beside her in her old Honda as rain hit the windshield. It climbed the stairs with her to the small apartment she shared with unpaid bills. Second-hand furniture, and the faint scent of coffee she drank too late because exhaustion had become normal. Her younger brother, Noah, texted her just before midnight. You okay? Elena stared at the message too long. She wanted to ask him the same thing. Wanted to ask why he had sounded strange on the phone all week. Wanted to ask why he had stopped coming by for dinner. Wanted to ask why her little brother, the boy who used to fall asleep against her shoulder during their mother's hospital shifts, now carried secrets in his voice. Instead, she typed back, Infine, get some sleep. The lie looked ugly on the screen. She locked the door, pushed a chair beneath the handle, and did not sleep until dawn. For the next 2 days, nothing happened. No black car outside her building. No strange men at the restaurant. No threatening calls. La Lune Bleu returned to its usual rhythm of candlelight and cruelty. Wealthy patrons complained about wine temperature. Calvin avoided looking directly at Elena. The other servers whispered every time she entered the room. By the third night, Elena convinced herself Alessio Marcone had forgotten her. That was the foolish hope ordinary people used to survive powerful men. At 10:40 she szeptepu. M. The elevator doors opened, and the restaurant emptied. Not slowly, not naturally. 4 men in dark suits moved through the room like a silent storm. Checks were paid. Guests were escorted out with polite smiles and terrifying eyes. The jazz band packed up without finishing their set. The bartender vanished. The hostess lowered her gaze and stepped into the kitchen. Within 10 minutes, La Lune Bleu was empty. Except for Elena. Calvin stood near the bar, trembling so hard the keys in his hand jingled. And in the center of the dining room, at the table, directly beneath the chandelier, sat Alessio Marcone, alone. No private corner tonight. No velvet rope. No shield of orchids. He wanted to be seen. Elena stepped out of the kitchen and stopped. The restaurant had never felt so large, so bright, so unreal. Alessio looked up. "Elena Rhodes," he said. Her stomach tightened. "How do you know my full name?" "I make it my business to know the names of people who surprise me." That sounds like something a stalker would say. His mouth did not smile, but his eyes changed. "Sid." "No." Calvin made a strangled noise near the bar. Alessio's gaze stayed on Elena. "I said sit. And I heard you." The silence stretched. One of Alessio's men near the elevator shifted his weight. Elena could feel the danger in the room turning toward her. Sharp and immediate, but Alessio raised one hand. The man went still. Elena hated how much power fit inside that small gesture. Alessio leaned back in his chair. "You are either very brave or very foolish. I've been called worse by better men." That time, he almost smiled. "Almost. I came to offer you work." Elena stared at him. Then she laughed once. It was not a happy sound. "You emptied a restaurant to offer me a job." "Yes." "That is insane." It was efficient. "I already have a job." "You have a position," Alessio said. "There is a difference." The words landed too close to something tender. Elena folded her arms. "I'm not interested. You do not know what I am offering. I know who is offering it." For the first time, irritation flickered across his face. Good. She wanted him uncomfortable. She wanted him to feel one small fraction of what he made other people feel just by existing. Alessio placed a folder on the table. "I need a translator." "Hire one." "I have hired many. They speak words. They do not understand rooms." Elena said nothing. His voice lowered. 2 nights from now, I meet with a broker named Karim Haddad at the port of New Orleans. Moroccan-born, educated in London, connected to North African shipping families and several men who prefer not to have their names spoken aloud. He uses language like smoke. My people hear what he says. I need someone who hears what he means. Elena's pulse changed. She hated that part of her mind sharpened at the challenge. No, absolutely not. She had walked away from that world years ago. Diplomatic language, regional dialects, cultural nuance, rooms where the wrong phrase could turn a negotiation into war. She had buried that version of herself with her mother. I'm a waitress, she said. You are a linguist. Her throat tightened. I was. You still are. You don't know anything about me. I know you studied at Tulane before dropping out during your final year. I know your mother was an emergency nurse who worked in conflict zones. I know you lived in Beirut, Cairo, and Amman before you were 18. I know you speak Arabic better than some men born into it. Each sentence felt like a hand opening drawers inside her private life. Elena stepped closer to the table. Did you investigate me because I embarrassed you? Yes. The honesty hit harder than a lie would have. And now you want to use me? Yes. At least you reconsistent. Alessio's eyes darken. I will pay you very well. No. I will protect you from the danger you re-asking me to walk into. His jaw tightened. Elena turned toward the kitchen. Find someone else. Then Alessio said, Noah owes $82,000 to Rafael Cordero. Elena stopped breathing. The name struck her like ice water. Slowly. She turned back. What did you say? Alessio tapped the folder once. Your brother borrowed money from men who do not forgive late payments. You lying. I wish I were. No. You don't know. No. He said quietly. I don't too. Elena moved before she decided to. She snatched the folder from the table and opened it. Photographs spilled out. Noah outside a boxing gym. Noah near a card room behind a closed-down tire shop. Noah standing beside a man Elena had never seen before. His shoulders hunched. His face pale. There were copies of messages. Payment dates. Numbers circled in red. Her hands began to shake. Noah had been lying. Again. Her little brother, who promised he had stopped gambling, who promised he had found steady work, who smiled too brightly when Elena asked questions and hugged her too quickly when he left. Elena pressed her fingers to her mouth for one terrible second. She was not in the restaurant anymore. She was 21, standing in a hospital corridor while a doctor told her their mother was gone. She was holding 17-year-old Noah as he sobbed into her shirt. She was promising him they would be okay while having no idea how to make that true. Alessio's voice cut through the memory. Cordero will collect by Friday. Elena looked at him. Did you do this? No. If you lying, I am many things. Elena, I am not the reason your brother walked into that room. But you will use it? Yes. The word was cold. Cruel. True. Elena hated him for that. She hated the beautiful suit, the calm voice, the controlled face, the way he could stand in front of her pain and see leverage. You are exactly what I called you. She whispered. A coward. This time. Alessio did not deny it. Something moved behind his eyes. A shadow. A wound hidden under years of power. Yes, he said softly. Perhaps I am. The answer unsettled her. She wanted rage, threats, arrogance. Not that. Not a glimpse of a man who already knew the worst thing about himself. Elena closed the folder. What do you want? One night, Alessio said, you come with me to the port. You translate. You observe. You tell me of hatted lies. And then, I erase your brother's debt. Cordero never touches him. And me. You return to your life. My life, Elena laughed bitterly. You mean the one where men like you insult me in languages they think I'm too stupid to understand? His face tightened. That will not happen again. Because you need me now. Because I was wrong. Elena looked at him carefully. The apology was not spoken. Not fully. Powerful men hated apology because it required kneeling somewhere inside the soul. Alessio was not kneeling. Not yet. If I do this, she said, you stay away from Noah. Yes. You stay away from my apartment. Pause. Yes. And you never again use my body as a weapon against me. Alessio rose from his chair. The room seemed to shrink around him. He was taller than she expected. Close enough now that she could see a faint scar near his jaw. The clean lines of his face. The tiredness hidden beneath discipline. His voice dropped. I will never insult your body again. Elena held his gaze. Good. Then she stepped closer. Just enough to make every man in the room tense. Because if you do, I won't call you a coward next time. Something dangerous and fascinated flashed in Alessio's eyes. What will you do? Elena looked at him without blinking. I'll make sure you remember me for the rest of your life. The silence between them changed. It was still dangerous, but now there was something else inside it. Heat. Unwanted. Impossible. Infuriating. Alessio stared at her as if she had just become a language he wanted to spend his life translating. Then he said, Friday night, 8 o'clock. Where's something you can run in? Elena's stomach sank. Should I be expecting to run? His eyes held hers. With men like Haddad, you should expect anything. That was when Elena understood. The trap had already closed. And the devil who said it was watching her like she had become the most interesting thing in his world. Friday arrived beneath a storm. New Orleans rain did not fall gently. It crashed against rooftops, flooded gutters, turned streets into black mirrors, and made the whole city feel like it had secrets rising from the pavement. Elena stood in front of her apartment mirror, wearing a deep emerald pantsuit delivered that afternoon by Alessio's tailor. She had nearly refused it on principle. Then she tried it on. The suit fit perfectly. Not tight, in the cruel way. Uniforms were tight. Not apologetic. Not designed to hide her. It shaped her body with clean lines and soft power, honoring every curve as if elegance had finally been made in her size. Elena stared at herself for a long moment. She looked expensive. No, she looked dangerous. That bothered her more than it should have. A knock sounded at the door. Elena grabbed her purse and opened it. Alessio stood in the hallway. No bodyguards visible. Just him in a black coat. Rain on his shoulders. His hair damp from the storm. Her pulse betrayed her immediately. You said you would stay away from my apartment. I said I would stay away after tonight. You enjoy loopholes. I survive because of them. Elena stepped into the hallway and locked the door behind her. His eyes moved over her. Not crudely. Not like that first night. Slowly. Carefully. As if looking without permission had become dangerous to him. Elena lifted her chin. Say something insulting. I dare you. His gaze returned to her face. You look formidable. She did not expect that word. Not beautiful. Not pretty. Not flattering enough to dismiss. Formidable. Something in her chest tightened. I'm still angry with you. You should be. I might stay angry. I would not insult your consistency. She almost smiled. Almost. Then she remembered the folder. Noah's face in those photographs. The way Alessio had used her love like a locked door he already had the key to. The smile died. Outside, a black SUV waited at the curb. Inside, the vehicle smelled of leather, rain, and expensive cologne. Alessio sat beside Elena, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the heat of him. The city slid past in wet neon streaks. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Then Elena said, What did Haddad offer you? A shipping route. For what? Alessio looked at her. You do not want the full answer. I want the truth. The truth stains. So does wine. I survived. His mouth twitched. Then his expression turned serious. Karim controls several maritime channels between Tangier, Marseille, and the Gulf Coast. He claims he can move goods quietly. Goods. Yes. Weapons. Appows. Sometimes. Elena looked away. The rain blurred the window. You re-asking me to help you commit crimes. I am asking you to help me avoid walking into a betrayal. You hear the difference? Yes. I don't too. Alessio's gaze stayed forward. That is why you are not like me. Something in his voice made her turn back. There it was again. That shadow. Not guilt, exactly. Something older, heavier. Why Arabic? She asked. His jaw tightened. What? The restaurant. You could have insulted me in Italian, Spanish, French. Men like you always have options. Why Arabic? For a while, only the rain answered. Then Alessio said, My mother spoke Arabic. Elena went still. She was Lebanese. Half Lebanese, half Sicilian. Too gentle for my father's world. Too stubborn to leave it. His fingers flexed once against his knee. She warned him once. During a meeting, she heard men planning betrayal in a dialect my father did not understand. He dismissed her, told her women heard fear in everything. Elena's throat tightened. What happened? Alessio's face became stone. My father lived. She did not. The SUV felt smaller suddenly. Elena looked at him. Really looked. Not at the suit or the power or the cruel mouth that had insulted her. At the boy who must have learned, brutally, that ignored women could become dead women. You learned Arabic because of her. Elena said softly. Yes. And you use it to insult people. His eyes cut to hers. The shame was there. Controlled. But visible. I became the kind of man I hated. Elena did not comfort him. He did not ask her to. But the silence after that was different. Less sharp. More dangerous. Because understanding someone did not erase what they had done. It only made hating them less simple. The SUV left the French Quarter behind and moved toward the industrial edge of the city, where the Mississippi River widened in the dark and cranes rose like skeletal giants against the storm. The port warehouse was lit by harsh white floodlights. Men waited near the entrance. Karim Haddad stood at the center of them, elegant in a gray suit. Silver hair slicked back, smile polished enough to be expensive. He looked like a diplomat. Elena immediately distrusted him. Alessio stepped out first, then offered his hand. Elena looked at it. He waited. No demand. No impatience. Only the rain falling between them. Finally, she placed her hand in his. His palm was warm. Too warm. He helped her out of the SUV, then released her immediately. That mattered. She wished it did not. Inside the warehouse, the air smelled of river water, rust, oil, and cold concrete. A long metal table had been set beneath a single row of industrial lights. Men stood in the shadows on both sides. Alessio's people behind him. Karim's across the room. Elena positioned herself slightly behind Alessio's right shoulder, close enough to hear, far enough to breathe. Karim's eyes found her. And who is this? He asked in Arabic. Elena translated the question into English. Alessio's answer was calm. My interpreter. Karim smiled. Beautiful choice. Elena translated that too, though her voice cooled around the words. Alessio did not look back at her, but she saw his hand tighten once at his side. Karim continued in Arabic. Formal and elegant. Elena translated every word. The first 10 minutes were theater. Greetings. Respect. History. mutual benefit. The next 10 became numbers: dock access, custom schedules, port workers, security windows, payment structures. Elena hated how easily her old training returned. Language was not just words. It was rhythm, breath. What a man emphasized, what he avoided. Whether his respect came from tradition or manipulation, Kareem was polished. Too polished. Every sentence had a second room hidden inside it. Alessio remained calm, almost bored, but Elena could feel the attention in him. He listened to her translation with absolute focus. He did not interrupt, did not question her in front of the others, did not treat her like furniture. Kareem noticed. His smile sharpened. He switched dialects once. A test. Elena followed without hesitation. He switched again. She followed. A flicker of irritation crossed his face before he smoothed it away. Good, Elena thought. Underestimate me again. Then Kareem leaned back and spoke more softly. The words sounded harmless at first. A poetic phrase about the river, a line about doors closing before storms, a reference to men above the water watching for safe passage. But the rhythm shifted. Not formal Arabic now. Not even standard Moroccan Dariha. Something coded. Dockside. Criminal. Fastened together with old smuggling slang and regional shortcuts most classroom translators would never catch. Elena felt the blood leave her face. Kareem was no longer speaking to Alessio. He was speaking to the men hidden above them. Close the east doors. Cut the lights. Kill Marconi's guards first. Keep the woman alive. Elena's heart slammed into her ribs. Kareem was still smiling. Alessio stood perfectly still. Elena stepped closer to him, close enough that her sleeve brushed his coat. He just gave an order. She whispered in English, barely moving her lips. There are men above us. The doors are about to lock. He wants your guards dead. Alessio did not react. That terrified her more than if he had. His voice was low. And me. Elena swallowed. He wants you alive long enough to make you sign over your port access. Alessio's eyes remained on Kareem. And you. Her voice almost failed. Alive. As leverage. For the first time all night, Alessio turned his head slightly. Not enough for the room to notice. Just enough for Elena to see his eyes. The cold was gone. In its place was something lethal. Not fear for himself. Fury for her. Translate exactly, he said. Then he faced Kareem. Tell him, Alessio said calmly, that he should have killed the lights before he let you hear him. Elena translated. Kareem's smile vanished. The warehouse lights went out. Darkness crashed over the room. Gunfire erupted. Elena screamed as Alessio's arm locked around her waist and pulled her down behind the metal table. Bullets ripped through the space where they had been standing. Glass shattered. Men shouted. Muzzle flashes split the darkness into violent pieces of light. Elena hit the concrete hard. Alessio covered her with his body. For one stunned second, she could not think. There was only sound. Deafening. Metallic. Brutal. Then Alessio moved. He dragged her behind a stack of steel crates while his men returned fire. Matteo shouted orders. Someone screamed near the west wall. Rain hammered the roof like the sky itself was trying to break in. Elena pressed both hands over her ears. She had imagined danger before. Everyone did. But real danger had no elegance. No dramatic music. No clean edges. It was smoke in her throat. Concrete biting her knees. Her own heartbeat turning animal. Alessio crouched in front of her, gun in hand. His body between her and the open warehouse. Are you hit? He demanded. Elena stared at him. What? Are you hit? She looked down at herself, shocked by the question. No, I don't think so. His eyes moved over her quickly, checking. Only when he was sure did he breathe again. The realization struck her with impossible force. He had been afraid, not of Kareem, not of bullets, not of betrayal. For her, another burst of gunfire tore into the crates. Sparks exploded near Elena's shoulder. She flinched, and Alessio's hand came up instinctively, shielding her face. "Stay down," he ordered. "I wasn't planning to stand." His mouth tightened, almost like he wanted to smile and hated the timing. Matteo slid behind the crates beside them. "East door is locked," he snapped. "They on the catwalks. 6, maybe 7. Alessio looked toward the far side of the warehouse. Loading bay. 30 yards. Exposed. Elena followed his gaze and saw the faint outline of a door lit by emergency red light. 30 yards might as well have been 30 miles. "No," she said. Alessio turned to her. "You run when I say no. This is not a negotiation. It became one when you dragged a civilian into your war." His eyes flashed. "I will get you out. And you, that is not your concern." The words hit her harder than they should have. Anger cut through her panic. "You do not get to use me. Protect me. And then die like that fixes anything." For 1 second, the gunfire seemed far away. Alessio stared at her as if she had reached into him and touched a wound no one else knew existed. "Elena," he said, and her name sounded different in his mouth now. Not a command, not leverage, something dangerously close to a plea. "Trust me." She wanted to say no. She wanted to say she would never trust a man like him. But another bullet hit the crates, and Alessio moved before she could think, pulling her closer, turning his shoulder to shield her from the spray of metal fragments. He did not hesitate. That was the problem. Cruel men could still protect. Monsters could still bleed. And sometimes the person who trapped you became the only thing standing between you and death. Elena swallowed hard. "Fine," she whispered. "But if you die, I'll never forgive you." His eyes burned. "Then I will survive out of fear." Matteo shouted. Now, everything happened at once. Alessio rose and fired toward the catwalk. Matteo and the others laid down cover. Elena, run. Her shoes slipped on wet concrete. Her lungs burned. Smoke stung her eyes. The loading bay door glowed ahead like salvation. A man stepped from the shadows to her left. She saw the gun before she saw his face. Then Alessio was there. He slammed into the man with brutal force, knocking the weapon aside. The shot went wide. Elena stumbled, screamed, kept moving, because Alessio roared her name like an order. The door burst open from outside. Rain swept in. One of Alessio's drivers grabbed Elena's arm and pulled her into the storm. She twisted immediately, searching behind her. Alessio emerged a second later, dragging Matteo with him. Both men soaked, furious, alive. Relief hit Elena so hard she nearly collapsed. Alessio saw it. For one heartbeat, under the floodlights and rain. They only looked at each other. No insult, no bargain, no debt, no language between them. Only the terrible knowledge that fear had tied something around them both. Then Matteo shoved them toward the waiting car. "Move." The SUV tore away from the warehouse as the port disappeared behind walls of rain. Elena sat in the back seat, shaking uncontrollably. Not graceful shaking, not cinematic. Her whole body betrayed her. Teeth chattering, hands trembling, breath breaking apart. Alessio sat beside her, one hand pressed to a wound at his side. Elena stared at the dark stains spreading beneath his fingers. You re-hurt. It's nothing. That's what men say before collapsing. His mouth tightened. I have no intention of collapsing in front of you. Because you're proud. Because you would lecture me. Despite herself, Elena let out a broken laugh. It turned into a sob almost immediately. She covered her face with both hands. The car went silent. Alessio did not touch her. She felt him wanting to. That restraint undid her more than comfort would have. I almost died. She whispered. Yes. Because of you. Yes. You blackmailed me into that room. Yes. Her hands dropped. Tears blurred her vision. But her voice sharpened. Say something else. Alessio looked at her. The powerful man from the restaurant was gone. In his place sat someone bloodied, furious, and stripped down to truth. I am sorry, he said. Elena stared at him. The words were quiet. No performance. No excuse. No attempt to make himself noble. Just the thing he owed her. And still, it was not enough. Sorry doesn't erase it. I know. It doesn't make you good. I know. It doesn't mean I forgive you. I know. The SUV crossed into the garden district, where old mansions watched the storm from behind iron gates. Alessio's safe house stood at the end of a private street lined with live oaks, dripping rain. It was not a house so much as a fortress disguised as Southern elegance, white columns, black shutters, gas lanterns, security cameras hidden beneath wrought iron. Inside, the world turned quiet. Too quiet. Marble floors, candlelit halls, dark wood, paintings older than most families, a staircase curving upward like something from a dream that had learned violence. A woman in a black dress led Elena to a sitting room and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. A doctor arrived for Alessio. Matteo spoke into a phone in the hallway. Men moved through the house with controlled urgency. Elena stood near the fireplace and watched blood darken. Alessio's white shirt as the doctor stitched the wound at his side. He never made a sound. That made her angrier. Pain should have humbled him. Instead, he endured it like punishment he believed he deserved. When the doctor finished, Alessio dismissed everyone with a look. Elena remained standing. You should sit, he said. You should stop telling me what to do. A faint shadow of amusement touched his tired face. Fair. She looked around the room, at the expensive silence. This is where you bring people after you ruin their lives. No, Alessio said. This is where I bring people I cannot afford to lose. The sentence hit too hard. Elena turned toward the fire. You barely know me. I know you hear what others miss. That's not knowing me. I know you stood up to me when everyone else in that restaurant lowered their eyes. That was anger. Courage often wears anger first. She hated him a little for saying things like that, for making her feel seen in the same breath that reminded her he was dangerous. Alessio reached for an envelope on the table. Noah's debt has been paid. Elena froze. He placed the envelope down. Cordero has been warned. Your brother is safe. She walked over slowly and opened it. Inside were receipts, account records, a signed statement, and a photograph of Noah leaving a diner that afternoon, alive and unharmed. Relief hit her so sharply she had to grip the edge of the table. For years, she had carried Noah like a second heartbeat. Every mistake he made became her emergency. Every debt became her sleepless night. Every lie became her responsibility. And now, suddenly, the danger was gone. Because of the man who had used it against her, she hated how complicated gratitude could feel. You held up your end, she said. Yes. So I'm free. Alessio's face changed. He had known this moment was coming. Still, it hurt him. Good, Elena thought, then immediately hated herself for caring. Yes, he said. You are free. No, locked door. No threat. No hand around her wrist. Just freedom, sitting between them like a knife. Elena picked up the envelope. She should leave. Every rational part of her knew that. Leave the mansion. Leave the mafia boss. Leave the dangerous warmth in his eyes. Return to her apartment. Her bills. Her brother. Her life. Forget the way Alessio had thrown himself between her and bullets. Forget how he said sorry like the word had cost him blood. Forget the strange, impossible pull of being seen by a man who had first wounded her. She took one step toward the door, then stopped. Why did you really ask me? She said. Alessio's gaze lifted. I told you. No. You told me why you needed me, not why you came back yourself. Silence. The fire cracked softly. Alessio leaned back, one hand resting near the bandage beneath his shirt. Because after you walked away from me, I heard my mother's voice for the first time in years. Elena's breath caught. She used to say, a cruel man is only brave when he believes no one can answer him. His eyes held Elena's. You answered. The room felt suddenly too intimate. Elena looked away. That doesn't make this romantic. No. It doesn't make what you did okay. No. I am not some prize you get because you feel guilty. His expression hardened, not with anger, but with restraint. I know. Do you? He stood slowly. Elena's body reacted before her mind could stop it. Not fear this time. Awareness. He was wounded. Exhausted. Still terrifying. Yet he moved toward her carefully, stopping several feet away. I want you, he said. The words were quiet, devastating. Elena's pulse leapt. Alessio continued before she could speak. But wanting is not owning. I learned that too late to be innocent. Her throat tightened. You don't get to touch me just because you protected me. I know. You don't get to decide I belong here. I know. You don't get forgiveness tonight. His voice roughened. I know. That should have made him less dangerous. It did not. It made him worse. Because Elena had spent her life defending herself from men who argued, denied, minimized, demanded. Alessio simply stood there and accepted every boundary like each one was a law written in her blood. She hated how much power there was in restraint. A phone rang in the hallway. The moment shattered. Matteo appeared at the door. Faccia grim. Boss. Alessio did not look away from Elena. What? Karim wasn't working alone. The air changed. Elena's fingers tightened around the envelope. Matteo glanced at her, then back to Alessio. Cordero's men were paid to push the brother into debt. The whole thing was bait. Elena went cold. What? Alessio turned fully now. Matteo's voice was controlled, but fury lived beneath it. Karim knew about Elena before we did. Someone told him she understood dialects. He needed her at the meeting. Needed proof she was valuable to you. Elena's thoughts scattered. No, that doesn't make sense. Why would Karim care about me? Alessio's face had gone deadly calm. Because a woman who can hear coded language is dangerous in our world. Matteo stepped closer. There's more. Karim's men followed Noah after we paid Cordero. They know where Elena lives. The envelope slipped from Elena's hand. Papers scattered across the floor. Alessio moved instantly. Not toward Matteo, toward Elena. He stopped himself before touching her. But his voice changed. No one will reach your brother. In my apartment, Elena whispered. Alessio's silence answered. Her little apartment, her mother's photographs, her books from college, the chipped blue mug Noah bought her when he was 16, the cheap couch where she had fallen asleep after double shifts. Her life, fragile and ordinary in hers. All of it was now inside the blast radius of Alessio Marcone's war. Elena looked at him, and the fragile thread between them snapped into anger again. You said after tonight I would go back to my life. I was wrong. You keep saying that like it saves anyone. His jaw clenched. It does not. Then fix it. The words left her shaking. Alessio's eyes darkened. I will. There was no softness in his voice now. No romance. Only the mafia boss everyone feared. He turned to Matteo. Move Noah to the north house. Double the men. Quietly. I do not want him frightened unless fear becomes useful. Matteo nodded. And Kareem. Alessio looked toward the rain-dark windows. Kareem wanted to know what I would burn for her. Elena's breath caught. Alessio's voice dropped. Now he will. The next 48 hours turned Elena's life into a gilded cage. Alessio refused to let her return to her apartment until his men cleared it. Elena refused to sleep in the bedroom he offered her, and instead stayed on the sitting room sofa out of pure spite. Alessio did not argue. He had blankets brought down, tea, food she barely touched. A stack of her books recovered from her apartment before his men moved everything valuable to storage. That almost broke her. Not the danger. The books, seeing them on the table in Alessio's mansion, dry and safe, each one handled with care, made her realize he had noticed what mattered to her. She found him in the library just before dawn on the second day. He stood near the window, phone in hand, wearing a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up, tattoos visible along his forearms. He looked like he had not slept. Neither had she. You saved my books, Elena said. He turned. Yes. Why? You wrote notes in the margins. She blinked. What? His expression remained calm. People save photographs, jewelry, money. You save thoughts. Elena did not know what to do with that, so she chose anger. You had no right to read them. You had no right. I did not read them. I noticed them. That sounds like something a man says when he absolutely read them. For the first time in days, Alessio smiled. Only a little. Only enough to remind her that he was devastating when he allowed himself to be human. Elena looked away first. Coward, she thought, but this time, she was not thinking of him. You should hate me, he said. I do. No, Alessio said quietly. You want to? Her eyes snapped back. Do not translate my feelings for me. He lowered his head once. You are right. The apology disarmed her again. She hated that too. A storm rolled beyond the windows. Gray morning light turning the garden silver. Elena crossed her arms. What happens now? Kareem will strike again. That's comforting. He has lost the element of surprise. Men like him grow desperate when elegance fails. And men like you, Alessio's eyes held hers. We become patient. Elena studied him. Are you going to kill him? The question sat between them. Alessio did not pretend. If he comes for you or your brother. Yes? A month ago. Elena would have recoiled. Now, after seeing Kareem's smile while he ordered her kept alive as leverage, she only felt tired. What does that make me? She whispered. Alessio's face softened in the smallest way. Human. She looked down. I don't want to become part of your world. I know. But my world isn't safe anymore. No. And you are the reason. That, yes. The tears came suddenly. Elena hated them, but there was no stopping the exhaustion, the anger, the fear for Noah, the grief for the life she had been barely holding together even before Alessio entered it. She turned away quickly. Alessio did not move closer. Elena. No. He went silent. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. My mother used to say, language is a bridge. She said, that if you understand someone, really understand them, you are responsible for what you do with that understanding. Alessio's voice was low. She was right. I understand enough about you to know you are not safe. No. I understand enough to know you are trying. His breath changed. Elena turned back to him. That is worse. Why? Because monsters are easier when they stay monsters. Alessio looked at her like the words had entered him and stayed there. Before he could answer, shouting erupted downstairs. Matteo's voice, then the sound of breaking glass. Alessio moved so fast, Elena barely saw him cross the room. He grabbed her arm. Not hard, but urgently, pulling her behind him as the library door burst open. One of Alessio's men staggered inside. Car bomb at the south gate, he said. It was a diversion. Then the windows exploded inward. Elena screamed. Alessio threw himself over her as glass rained across the floor. Gunfire cracked from the garden below. The library filled with wind, rain, and chaos. Stay down, Alessio shouted. Elena hit the carpet, ears ringing, heart slamming. Not again. No, not again. Alessio dragged her behind a heavy oak desk. His men returned fire from the hallway. The mansion alarms wailed. Smoke curled beyond the shattered windows. Elena could not breathe. Then she heard a voice from below. Karim, amplified through a phone. Smooth and cruel. Marcone, send me the woman, and I will leave your house standing. Alessio went still. The temperature of the room seemed to drop. Elena looked at him. His face was no longer human. It was beautiful. Cold violence. Karim continued, his voice echoing through the storm. She is only a waitress. Do not lose an empire over a woman who served you wine. Something inside Elena twisted. Only a waitress. The phrase should have hurt. It did, but before it could settle, Alessio moved toward the broken window. Elena grabbed his wrist. No. He looked down at her hand, then at her face. His eyes were terrifying. He does not speak of you that way and continue breathing. The words should have frightened her. They did. But they also sent a dark, forbidden warmth through her chest. Possessive protection was not safety. She knew that. But when a woman had been insulted, dismissed, and made small her whole life, there was something devastating about a dangerous man becoming furious because someone else tried to reduce her. Elena, Alessio said, voice strained. Let go. If you walk out angry, he wins. I do not lose. You will if you stop thinking. That reached him, barely, but enough. His gaze sharpened. Elena forced herself to breathe. He wants me alive. He said it at the port. He needs something from me. Alessio's jaw worked. No. You don't even know what I'm going to say. I know it will involve risk to you. So no. Despite everything, Elena almost laughed. You're very controlling for a man bleeding on my carpet. It is my carpet. Not the point. Another shot cracked through the window frame. Elena flinched. Alessio's hand came up, hovering near her cheek before stopping. almost touching. The restraint hurt more than contact. Elena looked toward the broken window. Let me speak to him. No. Alessio. His name changed something. She had said Marcone before. Boss. You. Coward. But not Alessio like that. His eyes flickered. Elena lowered her voice. He thinks I'm leverage. Let him believe I'm scared enough to bargain. He'll talk. Men like him always talk when they think a woman is cornered. Alessio looked at her for a long, brutal moment. Then he said, if he aims at you, I end the conversation. Fair. If you step beyond the desk, I carry you out of this room myself. Less fair. Elena. Fine. Matteo crawled into the room, bloodless with fury. Boss. We have 3 shooters pinned near the fountain. Karim is behind the west wall. Alessio looked at Elena. She nodded once. Then she lifted her voice and spoke in Arabic. Karim Haddad. The gunfire slowed. Alessio's entire body remained angled in front of hers. Karim answered, amused. There she is. The clever waitress. Elena forced herself not to react. You wanted me alive. Why? Pause. Then Karim laughed softly. Because Marcone's empire is built on fear. But fear does not hear whispers. You do. Alessio's gaze sharpened. Elena continued. You do not need me for translation. No, Karim said. I need you to open his files. Elena frowned. Alessio went dangerously still. Karim's voice turned silky. Did he not tell you? His mother left records. Names. Roots. Betrayals. Old alliances. Locked behind language and memory. Half Arabic. Half Sicilian code. Marcone has spent years failing to unlock all of it. Elena looked at Alessio. For the first time since she had known him, he looked shaken. Karim laughed again. He did not choose you only because you embarrassed him. Elena. He chose you because you are the first woman in years who might be able to read his mother's ghosts. The words landed like betrayal. Elena turned slowly toward Alessio. Is that true? His silence was the answer. The room seemed to tilt. Elena. He said. No. Elena. Listen to me. You said you needed me for Haddad. I did. And for your mother's files. His face tightened. At first? Yes. At first. The phrase did not save him. It made it worse. Because some small part of her had started to believe the connection between them was born from the restaurant, from her courage, from the way she had forced him to see her. But there had been another reason. Another use. Another locked door inside her life that he had planned to open. Elena laughed once, but it sounded broken. Of course. Alessio's voice dropped. I should have told you. Yes. I was going to. No. You were waiting until I cared enough for it to hurt. That struck him. Hard. Outside, Karim shouted something to his men. The gunfire resumed. Matteo cursed and returned fire from the doorway. Alessio grabbed Elena as bullets tore into the bookshelves behind them. She shoved at his chest, furious even as he protected her. Do not touch me. A flash of pain crossed his face. Then he released her. Immediately. Even now, even in danger, that almost broke her more than the betrayal. Alessio turned to Matteo. Get her to the cellar passage. No. Elena snapped. Both men looked at her. She wiped rain and tears from her face. Karim wants the files. Where are they? Alessio's eyes narrowed. Elena. Where? In the West study safe. Can you move them? Not while his men control the West Hall. Elena looked toward the shattered window. Then burn them. Alessio stared at her. What? If those files are worth attacking your house for, burn them. Let Karim watch. Matteo went still. Alessio looked at Elena as if she had just handed him a blade and a prayer. My mother's records are the only pieces of her voice I have left. Elena's anger faltered. For 1 second, she saw the boy again. The one who learned Arabic after loss. The one who became cruel because grief had nowhere clean to go. Her voice softened despite herself. Then choose what she would have wanted protected. Her papers, or the living woman standing in front of you. Alessio closed his eyes. Just for a second. When he opened them, the decision had already been made. Matteo, he said. Matteo nodded once and disappeared into the hallway. Minutes stretched like wire. Gunfire. Rain. Smoke. Alarms. Then flames bloomed beyond the west side of the house. Bright orange behind rain-streaked windows. Karim screamed in Arabic. Not elegant now. Not polished. Furious. Alessio stepped to the broken window, keeping low, and called out in the same language. You wanted my mother's ghosts, he said. Now choke on the ashes. The attack broke after that. Karim's men tried to retreat with whatever dignity they could salvage. Alessio's people were waiting. The violence moved away from the library, down through the garden, beyond the gates, swallowed by storm and sirens that would never officially arrive. Elena stayed on the floor behind the desk, shaking again. But this time, the fear was tangled with something worse. Heartbreak. When it was over, Alessio stood across the ruined room from her. Rain blew through the broken windows. Books lay torn across the floor. Smoke drifted through the hall. His mansion looked wounded. So did he. Elena, he said. She stood slowly. Do not. He stopped. Good. She needed him to stop. Needed space before the part of her that understood him. Started making excuses for the part of him that had betrayed her. You were going to use me to read your mother's files? Yes. After everything. Before everything, he said. That does not make it better. But it is the truth. Elena's eyes burned. I am so tired of being useful to men. His face changed. She saw the impact of those words hit deeper than any accusation. I know. No. You don't too. Her voice broke. You see value and call it admiration. You see pain and call it strength. You see a woman surviving and decide she can survive more. Alessio looked stricken. Actually stricken. But Elena could not comfort him. Not now. You paid my brother's debt, she said. Thank you. Elena, you protected me. Thank you. His eyes darkened with dread. But I am leaving. Silence. Every inch of him resisted. She could see it. The command rising in him, the possessive instinct, the fear dressed as control. But he did not move toward her. He only asked, quietly, where will you go? A hotel. Then somewhere Karim won't look. He is not finished. Neither am I. His mouth tightened. Let me protect you. No. Elena. I said no. The room went still. Then Alessio did something no one in his world would have believed. He lowered his head. Not fully. Not dramatically, but enough. Then take Matteo. She blinked. What? Not for me. For you. He will follow your orders. If you tell him to leave, he leaves. If you tell him to stand outside, he stands outside. If you tell him to drive into the river, he will ask, which side? Despite the ache in her chest, Elena almost smiled. Almost. You trust him that much? With your life? Yes. And with yours? A faint shadow crossed his face. That has never mattered as much. She looked away, because there it was again. That dangerous tenderness, the kind that made leaving feel like tearing skin from bone. But she left anyway. For 3 days. Elena stayed in a small hotel near the edge of Baton Rouge, under a name Matteo arranged and did not ask about. True too. Alessio S. word. Matteo obeyed her. He stayed outside her door, brought food, answered questions only when asked, never reported her conversations where she could hear him. Though Elena knew Alessio was probably losing his mind somewhere in New Orleans. She called Noah. He cried when he heard her voice. That hurt more than anything. I'm sorry, he said over and over. Elena, I swear I didn't know how bad it got. I swear I was going to fix it. She closed her eyes. No, you weren't. I know. The honesty was new. Maybe fear did that. Maybe almost losing everything stripped people clean. I can keep saving you from yourself, Elena said. Noah went quiet. I know. I love you. But love is not the same as carrying. He cried harder. So did she. By the time the call ended, Elena felt emptied out. Noah was safe. For now. But Kareem was not gone. Alessio was wounded. Her apartment was compromised. Her job was impossible to return to. And beneath all of that, beneath the practical terror, was the ache she refused to name. She missed him. Not the mafia boss. Not the man who had insulted her. Not the man who had used her brother's debt or hidden his true reason for needing her. She missed the man who had stopped touching her the second she said no. The man who burned his mother's last records because Elena asked him what the dead would want from the living. The man who looked at her like she was not too much, but exactly enough to bring an empire to its knees. On the 4th night, Matteo knocked. Elena opened the door. His expression told her before he spoke. What happened? Kareem has Noah. The world disappeared. Elena gripped the doorframe. No. He was moved from the North House during a false medical call. 2 of our men are dead. Kareem saw a message. Elena's voice came out hollow. What does he want? You. Of course. The room seemed to tilt under her feet. Matteo continued carefully. Boss is already moving. Elena grabbed her coat. Matteo blocked the doorway. He told me not to bring you. Elena looked up at him. Then move. Elena. My brother is alive because I understand men like Kareem. Alessio will go in like a war. Kareem expects that. He wants that. Matteo's jaw tightened. And what do you expect? Elena's fear turned cold. I expect to end this. Kareem chose an abandoned church outside the city, half swallowed by cypress trees and stormwater. It had once been beautiful. Now moonlight fell through broken stained glass, scattering blue and red across rotting pews. The altar was cracked. Vines climbed the walls. Rain dripped from holes in the roof and pooled on the stone floor. Noah sat tied to a chair near the altar, bruised but alive. Elena saw him from the side entrance and nearly broke, but she did not make a sound. Alessio stood in the center aisle, alone, exactly as Kareem had demanded, only he was never truly alone. Elena knew enough now to see the shadows where Matteo's men waited. The broken balcony, the side doors, the dark gaps near the confession booths. Kareem stood near Noah with a gun in his hand and elegance back on his face. You burned history for a waitress, Kareem said to Alessio. Alessio's voice was ice. I burned bait. Kareem smiled. Do not pretend. Men like us do not burn power unless emotion has made us stupid. From the shadows, Elena watched Alessio's hands curl. Kareem turned the gun slightly toward Noah. Call her. No. Kareem hid. You disappoint me. I expected obsession, not restraint. Elena stepped out before Alessio could answer. I'm here. Alessio turned. The look on his face nearly stopped her heart. Fear. Wrath. Furious. Helpless fear. Not for himself. Never for himself. For her. Elena. He said, voice low and dangerous. Leave. Kareem laughed. She does not obey you. That is why you want her. Elena walked slowly down the side aisle, keeping her eyes on Kareem, though every instinct screamed to look at Noah. Let my brother go. Kareem smiled. Read for me. I thought the files burned. Copies exist. Not complete. Enough to matter. Marcona's mother was clever, but not as clever as she believed. Elena saw Alessio's face change. Kareem noticed too. He said softly. You did not know. The emotional blade slid perfectly between them. Alessio looked at Elena for one terrible second. She saw the old fear in him, the fear of being too late again, of losing another woman to a warning ignored. Elena understood then. Kareem did not just want information. He wanted Alessio broken by repetition. A woman who understood the language. A warning. A betrayal. A death he could not stop. No. Elena would not become someone else's ghost. She looked at Kareem and spoke in Arabic. Not formal. Not polite. She used the dockside code he had used at the warehouse. His expression shifted. Good. Your men in the balcony are afraid. Elena said calmly. The one to your left has already lowered his weapon twice. The one behind the statue is wounded. You came here with desperate men and called it strategy. Kareem's smile thinned. Alessio did not move, but she felt his attention sharpen. Elena continued, switching dialects with each sentence, forcing Kareem to follow her. You wanted me because I hear what men hide. So hear this. Your room is wrong. Your exits are watched. Your leverage is shaking. Your plan ended before I walked through the door. Kareem's face hardened. You arrogant woman. No, Elena said, just tired. Then, she looked at Noah. In English, she said, close your eyes. Noah obeyed. The church exploded into motion. Alessio moved first. Fast. Brutal. Controlled. Matteo's men struck from the shadows. Kareem fired once. But Elena had already dropped behind a pew. Alessio slammed into Kareem before he could aim again, knocking the gun across the altar stones. The fight was short, not clean, not cinematic in the way stories make violence beautiful. It was savage and desperate. A collision of men who had both built their lives around control. Kareem reached for a hidden blade. Elena saw it. Alessio. Her warning came 1 second before Kareem struck. Alessio twisted. The blade missed his ribs and cut across his arm instead. He disarmed Kareem with terrifying precision and forced him to his knees on the broken stone. Then he stopped. Elena rose slowly. Rain fell through the ruined roof between them. Alessio looked at Kareem. Every part of him wanted to finish it. Elena could see that. Kareem laughed, breathless and bleeding from the mouth. Do it. Show her what you are. Alessio's eyes lifted to Elena. The church went silent except for rain. This was the moment, not the restaurant, not the port, not the mansion. This, would he choose the monster because it was easy, or the man because it cost him? Elena did not speak. She would not command his soul for him. Alessio looked back at Kareem. Then he stepped away. "Take him," he said to Matteo. Kareem's laughter died. Matteo moved instantly. Dragging him up, Alessio walked to Noah and cut the ropes himself. Noah fell forward, shaking, and Elena caught him. Her brother sobbed against her shoulder. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Elena held him tightly. Across the ruined church, Alessio watched them with something like grief on his face. He had saved Noah. He had spared Kareem. Not because he was weak, because Elena had made him want to become someone who could stand in front of her without blood on his hands every time. When Noah was taken safely outside, Elena remained in the church. Alessio stood near the altar, rain dripping through the roof onto his shoulders. His arm was bleeding. His face was bruised. His black suit was torn. He looked like a fallen king in a ruined cathedral. Elena walked toward him. "You came," he said. "So did you?" "I told Matteo not to bring you. I told Matteo to move." A faint, exhausted smile touched his mouth. "He values his life. He valued mine more." Alessio lowered his gaze, as he should. Elena stopped in front of him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Everything between them stood there too. The insult, the debt, the port, the betrayal, the fire, the church, the choice. "You spared him," Elena said. "Yes." "Why?" Alessio looked at her. "Because I heard you." Her chest tightened. "I didn't say anything." "No," he said, "but I heard you." That broke the last wall she had been holding. Not completely, not foolishly, but enough for truth to enter. "I still don't forgive everything," she whispered. "I know. I still don't trust your world. You should not. I still might leave." His face tightened, but he nodded. "If you choose to leave, I will make the road safe." Elena stared at him. That was love, she thought suddenly. Not the soft kind, not the easy kind. A dangerous man standing in the rain, offering freedom even though it would destroy him. She stepped closer. "And if I choose to stay?" His breathing changed. "Elena, if I choose," she said carefully. "Not because you trap me, not because Noah owes anyone, not because you need my language or my mind or my courage. If I choose to stand beside you for a while and see who you become when you stop hiding behind power." His eyes burned. "Then I will spend every day proving you did not choose wrong." Elena touched his wounded arm gently. "You will start by seeing a doctor." A rough laugh left him. It sounded almost human. "Yes, and by never calling me only a waitress again?" His expression softened. "No," he said. "Never only." She looked up at him through the rain falling in broken lines of moonlight. "What am I?" Then, Alessio lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to move away. She did not. His fingers touched her cheek with impossible care. "The woman who translated my cruelty back to me," he said. "The woman who saved my life. The woman who made me afraid of becoming less than what she deserves." Elena's sighs stung. "That's a lot for one woman." His thumb brushed away a raindrop near her mouth. "You have always been more than small men knew how to carry." The words entered every wounded place in her. This time, when she kissed him, it was not surrender. It was not forgiveness wrapped in romance. It was choice. Slow, fierce, trembling with everything they had survived. Alessio did not pull her against him. He waited until her hands rose to his chest. Only then did his arms close around her. Careful, despite the blood on his sleeve. Protective, without possession. Outside, Thunder rolled over the cypress trees. Inside the ruined church, Elena Rhodes kissed the most dangerous man in New Orleans, like she was not afraid of his darkness, because she had brought enough fire of her own. 3 months later, La Lune Bleu reopened under a new name. The Rhodes Room. No one in the city knew exactly how Elena had gone from waitress to owner. They whispered. Of course, rich people always whispered when a woman rose faster than they believed she deserved. Some said Alessio Marconi bought it for her. They were wrong. He bought the building. Elena bought the restaurant from him for $1 and a contract she wrote herself. With 3 lawyers present and Alessio looking deeply amused as she negotiated like a woman born for war. The Rhodes Room was different now. The uniforms fit every body. The staff ate before service. Customers who disrespected workers were escorted out, no matter how much money they had. And every Friday night, a jazz singer stood beneath the chandelier while Elena moved through the dining room in silk and confidence. No apron. No lowered gaze. No apology. On opening night, the restaurant glittered with gold light. Noah sat near the bar drinking club soda. 6 months clean from gambling and looking healthier than Elena had seen him in years. Matteo stood by the entrance, pretending not to smile. And Alessio Marconi sat at the center table, not hidden in the private section, not above her, waiting. Elena approached with a bottle of wine. For a moment, the memory returned. The old table, the red stain, the insult, the silence after she called him a coward. Alessio remembered too. She saw it in his eyes. Elena poured the wine slowly. Not a drop spilled. Alessio looked up at her. In Arabic, he said softly, "May I say something dangerous?" Elena arched one brow. "That depends." His gaze moved over her face with quiet devotion. Not ownership, not hunger alone. Reverence. You are the most formidable woman I have ever known. Elena's mouth curved. In any language, in every language. She set the bottle down. Good answer. He stood, ignoring the entire room watching them. Elena, he said, switching to English, because this was not a secret. Dance with me. The old Elena might have looked around first, might have wondered who was judging her body, her dress, her right to be wanted publicly by a man like him. This, Elena did not. She placed her hand in his. The jazz band softened into something slow and aching. Alessio led her beneath the chandelier. His hand rested at her waist with careful pressure, never pulling too hard, never assuming more than she gave. Around them, New Orleans glittered through the windows. Rain tapped gently against the glass. Elena looked up at the man who had once humiliated her because he thought she was invisible. Now he looked at her as if the entire room existed only because she allowed it. You know, she said, the first time you spoke about me in Arabic, you chose terrible words. His face tightened with regret. I know. What would you say now? Alessio leaned closer. His voice was low, steady, meant only for her. I would say I mistook a queen for a waitress because I was too blind to recognize royalty without a crown. Elena's heart ached. She should have rolled her eyes. Instead, she smiled. That was dramatic. I am Sicilian. That is not a legal defense. No, he said, but it is a warning. She laughed then, softly, freely, and Alessio Marconi, feared by criminals, obeyed by politicians, whispered about by men who locked their doors at night, looked completely undone by the sound. Elena rested her head briefly against his chest, not because she needed protection, because she chose closeness. And beyond the windows, the city kept glowing The woman who had once been told she took up too much space now owned the brightest room in New Orleans. The man who had once hidden cruelty inside another language had learned to speak love where everyone could hear it. And when the music ended, Alessio lowered his mouth to Elena's ear and whispered one final promise. "Tell me where you want to go next." Elena looked around her restaurant, at her brother's safe, her staff smiling, her name shining above the door. Then she looked back at the Mafia Boss, who had become both her greatest danger and her most impossible devotion. "Forward," she said. Alessio smiled. And, together, they stepped into the light,